It is Monday on Daily Delivery. Michael Rand here, Patrick Reusse with me as usual. Patrick, people are prone to say we needed the rain. I don't know if we needed the rain today, did we?
We don't need any more rain. I've been saying all year, and I know that there's some farmers who might disagree with me, but I loved last year, the drought, man. I loved it. I think the Twins had one 30-minute rain delay last year
Yes.
in 81 home games. The opener got pushed back one day because of cold. That was it. They
Yeah.
played the schedule. It was fantastic. And all out through Minnesota, of course, these town ball teams are, last year they just played when they were scheduled. Now I'm sure they're all backed up for their playoffs and everything. But yeah, it's been amazingly wet. So I don't quite get it, and we're supposed to get more today, right? So
Yes.
unbelievable. I've had enough. Thank you. My
Yes.
sump pump in the basement hasn't stopped running for a month at least. I mean, it's going all the time. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. It's well, Twins got lucky, right? They didn't really
and they didn't have
didn't
any.
really
What
didn't
did
really
they have
catch
to?
much this weekend, at least.
No, I think they played a nice. I was surprised they sold it out Saturday night.
For Joe.
A little bit Joe appreciation. That was. I think we have this opinion that because oh, you can every time we write about Joe, you can look at the comments and there's the negative stuff about he was hurt too much and he didn't care and all that stuff. But I think that he's that's not exactly the audience that you have out there, and he's
No.
obviously been a very popular athlete in Minnesota, and he proved that again. Because they sure didn't come up for a dynamic speech. That wasn't why they showed up. They showed up because they appreciate Joe. I was not there Saturday. People were asking me if I was going, and I said I did my duty spending $5,000 going to Cooperstown with the
Right.
wife. So
Right.
and that was I did the Joe weekend, so I already did my duty. But yeah, that was nice to see that big crowd turned out, and they didn't get Winnie back, but they got Molitor and Jack Morris, of course, was there, and they're gonna put a Joe statue up. What's the Joe statue gonna be? We got Harmon hitting a home run. We got Rodney and his crouch ready to hit. I would think Joe might be holding his catcher's mask or something,
Yeah.
right? And
That's what I
looking
think
out to
too.
the field or something like that. Because and let's face it, his last 4 years were at first base, but he's in the Hall of Fame because he was a catcher. So
Yes.
and a 6'5" catcher, by the way, who
Yes.
the first he got hurt like the first night he ever played in the Metrodome and had
Right.
that knee injury when he slipped on the turf. And he only played 35 games that year, but then from 2004 to 2010, he was historic for his greatness as a hitter and a catcher. So, and that's why he's in the Hall of Fame. I think it still surprised a lot of us that he made it the first ballot, but
Yes.
it's a reflection of the new voting for the Hall of Fame, which is fine with me. I mean, I've been doing it for 40 years, I've never been as crusty as a lot of guys on the first. If you're a first timer, I vote for you. Sometimes I reflect for a while and decide whether a guy should be a Hall of Famer or not. But it's not because it's the first year in the ballot. There's a lot of these guys that, I mean, you look at the fact that Rodney, I think, got 90% the first year or something.
Yeah.
Seven batting champions, and he did so 10% didn't vote for him for some reason. So it's we have been a weird group, but I think the consensus when you have as many people voting, I think there's a lot less politics involved in it than there is in the football system. So I think that any group of 400, there's going to be some idiots, but I think for the most part we do a good job. And Joe, congratulations, getting in the Hall of Fame, and that's and he got celebrated again. And I think we can now leave him alone, can't we? He can go back
Yes.
to
Yeah.
playing with the Twins and watching his Twins play soccer or whatever they play, and watching he coached his 6-year-old son, 5-year-old son
Yeah. Chip. Right.
baseball this year, Chip. So yeah, it was nice to see that he packed the place, and I didn't stick around. I was there Friday. I didn't stick around for the drones. I don't know how the drone show went, but they had a good
People
crowd
seem to like
Friday
it.
too.
I didn't see it either, but people seem to
Yeah,
like it. Well,
yeah. If the sky gets too full of drones, though, do they ever run into each other? I mean, that's what
I don't
I
know.
wonder
Never.
about.
It's a good point. I've
I
never thought
wonder
about
about.
that.
But anyway, the Mighty Whiteys came to town, and this is one of the most phenomenal things in the history of sports. To me, the stat you need to know about the Chicago White Sox is they came into existence in 1901,
Mm.
and that's 124 years. And in this season, they have the two longest losing streaks in franchise history.
Oof.
14 in a row starting May 26th, and now 20 in a row. Or is it 19? Was it 20
20.
or
No, it's
19?
20 now.
20,
It's 20.
20 in a row, 20 in a row with this sweep. And only the seventh team in history to lose 20, to reach 20.
Yes.
The all-time record, my guy Mock, 1961 with the Phillies, 23.
Mm-hmm.
And Gene, the worst loser I ever knew, also he was one of the guys who lost 20 with the Expos. So he's got two of the seven records
Oh my
there.
gosh. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is amazing.
Oh,
2 years ago when they started the season, they had about six, Robert and Jimenez and these
yeah.
guys that were supposed to be great, Bond,
Yeah.
that were supposed to be good. And they needed a little pitching, but it's incredible what has happened to this franchise. It's just unbelievable how bad they are, and they didn't really do that. I mean, they made a bunch of trades, but not big ones. I mean, Jimenez had no value by the time they traded him, and they didn't. They didn't. They only got all the trades they made. They only got one guy playing, the left fielder, and they got a bunch of young guys, but not like five-star prospects or anything.
No.
So they just, I don't know where they're going, but I would recommend to everybody go on Twitter, look up Awful Announcing, and
Mm-hmm.
watch the 1 minute of Ozzy's post-game show.
No,
Starts
Ozzy's been
off.
great in all
It
this. Yeah.
is fantastic. He's talking about they hired Griffall instead of him. How he's depressed.
Oh.
He's got to go to a psychiatrist.
Oh,
He's
jeez.
mean to everybody. The only people that like him because he's so ornery now is their
Oh.
grandkids. Everybody else, it's hilarious because Pedro Grifal is now 100 games under 500 since he got the job.
Oh.
So,
Well,
so
there were
anyway, check
what
out as soon as you get off the off this
off the
hit
podcast.
here off
Yeah.
the podcast. Go watch Ozzy's 1 minute on Awful Announcing. It's it's astounding, this White Sox post game show, because
Well,
what would BSN be doing if their team was 27-87? What would they be
that's a
doing? I mean, they would be, what would be the positive spin they'd come up with? The White Sox just let these guys rip the hell out of them.
yes. I
Here's
bet.
their stat, though. Here's their stat that the guy who's the host, I don't know who he is, yesterday came up with. If you take away the 34 losses and the two streaks, they still have the worst winning percentage in baseball.
Oh my
If
gosh.
you take away 34 losses, they're
Oh
still the
man.
worst in
Well, because
baseball.
there's 60 games under 500. What they're
60.
27 and 87. They're like 40 some games out. And I bet on Saturday Joe might have wanted to get in the lineup. He could have got a couple
Yeah,
hits. He
yeah.
could have got a couple
First,
hits.
they're the first team in Major League history, including the Cleveland Spiders, for goodness sakes, who are
Uh-huh.
famous, to only to lose 87 of their first, what is it, 114 games. They're the
Yes,
first,
114.
first one in baseball history to do that. So
It's
this is,
amazing.
this has replaced the Black Sox as the biggest scandal in White Sox history. This
Well,
team.
and like I think you wrote what you must have gone Friday. You wrote about how
Yeah,
the Twins are like, you don't, you're kind of wary of a team that's on a big losing
sure.
streak like that, and it turns out, no, they kept it going. They're
Yeah.
just that bad.
Yeah, they are, and they gave up. So I was watching them last week against Kansas City, and they twice were leading Kansas City going into the eighth, or were tied once, and they were ahead once, and they gave up 9 runs in those two eighth innings. Well, against the Twins, they gave up 12 runs in the eighth inning. So this week, last week, they went 0-6 and gave up 21 runs in the eighth
Mm.
inning. So, and I heard a little clip from Steve Stone saying, the eighth inning continues to be very unkind to the White Sox. The first through the seventh and the ninth haven't been that good, but
No,
the eighth has been
eighth is the big
incredible.
problem.
Anything. So the Twins, though, if you want a couple of concerns, they got to stop getting, I know Buxton for years, people have said he got to stop running into walls. And I always said that's caused about 5% of his injuries. But he's now
Hmm.
done it twice here in the last
Yeah.
month, right? So, it's great to see him out there running around catching the ball, especially when you see Manny Margot trying to play the
Mm.
outfield. But he's got to stop crashing into the walls. But hey, I believe, am I correct? Manager Baldelli let him play all 3 games this weekend. That was quite a feat, right? He
Yeah.
let him play all 3 games, and that's okay. I'd say the one concern though you got coming out of the weekend is Simeon Woods Richardson has now been bad 2 straight starts
Hmm.
and not throwing strikes. And he's been the surprise. He's been the reason that the rotation has survived because nobody expected him to,
Yes.
to arrive this way. And
Correct.
if he's hitting a wall, then all the people who were upset they didn't get a starter will be looking pretty accurate. I mean, they're going into this week. They're playing a Cubs team that's got a little life in it, and they're playing at home. Just swept the Cardinals, I think, and. And then they come home and they got the 4 with Cleveland, and the Cleveland doubleheader. They don't really have a starter for, I think,
No.
for either game yet. So they'll call somebody up, but if Woods Richardson has hit a wall, and I mean he's the shock of the season to me, and if he's hit a
Yes.
wall, then they got serious issues.
Well, and they got Correa. We're not sure where he's at health wise, and
Yeah,
he was
right.
their best player for 3.5 months. If he's coming back slow or not as effective from that second bout, other foot of plantar
Yes.
fasciitis, that's a big one too. So they got
Yes,
some
it is.
lingering
And
things, don't they?
last year they solved the plantar fasciitis issue by letting him continue to play, and then
Right.
it ripped, right, and that's the only thing that cures it. Well, now they're trying to rehab it, so
Yeah.
he's if he comes back, okay, he might be okay for a week, but it's I mean. We invented plantar fasciitis in this town. Michael Williams was
Hmm.
the first time anybody had ever heard of it in
That's
America
true.
was
That's
with
true.
Michael Williams.
First time
None
I
of us
remember
had
hearing about it.
ever
Absolutely.
heard it of, and it was one of the most difficult words to spell in the history of injuries because they got about 7 E's in fasciitis. They got endless I's. I mean, they got endless I's in fasciitis, but nobody'd ever heard of it, and now he used to be, he's got a sore foot. Now
Right.
so, yeah, that's not good because he was playing great. Although Brooks Lee arriving has saved him because he's a pretty good shortstop. I mean, he's
Hmm.
not great at the plate. He hasn't really hit that well since his early start, but he's a big league player and he can play third, short, and second. But
Yeah.
he's a good shortstop, and they didn't really have one of those. So, yeah, you're right. I mean, we're missing you're missing Correa, and that's bad because he was playing so good. So,
But you got yourself back within, I think, 4.5 of Cleveland because Cleveland lost a
uh,
couple to Baltimore. Kansas
well,
City's right there too. They're only 5, but so
I
they're
think Kansas City's the best team in the division. I like them a lot. They got the best player in the division, and they got good starting pitching. Cleveland's got more problems with their starters than the
yeah,
Twins do because they got like 4 guys hurt. They
yeah.
got
I
a
don't know how
bunch
they're
of
winning.
guys. I don't either. Scoring a lot of runs, for goodness sakes. That's what's amazing.
So that's a
But it is
surprise.
a kind
Yeah.
of fun to see. There's nothing. there's nothing better than in sports if you're own a team or you're promoting a team than unexpected success, right?
Yes,
And
100%.
Cleveland is packing them in lately because they've been fringe okay for years, but they haven't been exciting. And now, and there weren't big expectations for this team. And then you
Nope.
lost Bieber right off the bat, and yet they're drawing. You look, and they're on a weekend they're 30-35 a night, and that's back hell when they were winning them back in the day. They were great when they first were in Jacobs Field, but they've had a lot of seasons when they've been in strong contention and they do 20,000 a game. So they're
Yeah.
the people there are excited about them, which is unusual because usually they just sit around and wait for the Browns to go 5-12. So
you, you get three. You get three teams from the AL Central in the playoffs too. If
yeah,
how it's
Boston's about the only one that's contending to break that up, and because they're and they've
right.
been having trouble lately too. But yeah, Boston and yeah, actually, when you look at the standings, I think Houston and Seattle are like seventh, and
Yeah.
and one of those teams has got to go, right? Because they're going to be in they're going to win the West. So
Yeah, one of them's going to win the
it's
West, and then one of the Yankees or Baltimore will be a wild card, whichever one doesn't win that
it's
division. But you could
yeah.
have all of Cleveland, Kansas City, and Minnesota
Yeah,
all in.
that would be something. I'm not saying I saw this coming from Kansas City, but when they went out and got some pitching and they had Bobby Witt and they added to that lineup, they were 56 and 106 last year. But
Yeah,
I was saying they're going to be better. They're going to be better,
yeah,
and I didn't know it'd be this good though. I mean, Bobby Witt's phenomenal. I saw a great White Sox moment. I think watching them Wednesday, maybe.
okay,
Uh, they were in the contention for the game. They were only a run or so down, but they ended up like Witt's on first base. They end up having a left fielder kind of casually throws the ball to second on a ball that's going to be a double. Witt just kept running.
yeah,
He scores from first base. They're all sitting around looking at each other like, "Gee, what do we do there?" I mean,
yeah,
they're just what's under. I said this on Twitter. Everybody likes to say we don't talk enough about. That's on Twitter. That's
yes, oh
their
yeah,
big. We
yes,
don't talk enough about. We don't talk enough about how rotten they are in the field. We talk about
yeah,
bad
right.
pitching and bad hitting, but their fielding is awful. It's just brutal. So
And
we don't talk enough about that.
even when the White Sox were good, the fielding seemed like it was a problem. So
Yeah. Oh,
now that they're
yeah.
bad, yeah,
Oh God, it's been terrible. Yeah, it's amazing. So we're done with them though. What 12-1, right? 12-1.
yeah,
You know
that'd
what's
be like 20.
amazing?
Yeah,
The Guardians are 5-5 against them.
is that right? I didn't know
Yeah, the
that. Oh man,
Guardians are
well,
5-5 against them. Yeah.
so they've still got
It's,
three with them then. So
yes,
that's not good for the Twins
yes.
because that's almost like guaranteed. It's like you don't go into most series thinking you should sweep. You probably go into most series hoping you can get 2 out of 3 right, win the series. But you go into a White Sox series, you have to be thinking we can probably sweep these guys. So
Oh,
it's just a different.
you got it though too. I mean, there's like I try to write this Friday. God, there's pressure. You got to win.
Yeah,
If you don't win
right,
three, everybody's going to be demeaning you. I mean, if they'd
right,
lost that game yesterday, Tribune ahead 8-0, and
yeah,
suddenly it's 8-5, and you got the dauber out there
oh
throwing the
yeah,
ball in the middle of the plate at 85 miles an hour. It's I don't think the dauber's long for this world, by the way. But anyway, yeah, I mean that would have been one of the worst losses in franchise history if they'd managed to kick away an 8-0 lead against this team. So
yes,
anyway,
yes, yeah.
but going to Chicago, you didn't load the family up and head for Wrigley, huh? Like a
No,
lot of
not this year.
a lot of Minnesotans are doing. I went up and said to the wife last night, we got actually some other thing going on this weekend, but I said, otherwise, dear, we could get on the train and go to Chicago for the
Did
Cubs
you?
for a Cubs series that we did a few years
Oh boy.
ago. It's as close as I ever came to my second
I was
divorce
gonna
was
say
that
that
one. So
wasn't that we talked about that, I think. Wasn't
eight,
that just a nightmare of a
nine,
trip?
9 hours, the worst trip ever. We're stuck out in the middle of the weeds waiting for a freight train to come by for like an hour and to eat. And it was the worst trip ever. Well, it was so bad that we canceled we just ate the tickets coming home and went out to the airport.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's all over. I'm going to divorce court. He was She never hated me more than she did that weekend. It was unbelievable. That's what it
we ha-
was. That was a weekend where it was 100 degrees down there.
oh
Remember?
gosh. Yeah.
Astudillo ended up playing center field, making
Oh
his
gosh, that's right.
major league debut as a
Oh
center
gosh.
fielder. It was fantastic.
La
Yeah,
Tortuga. Mm,
yeah. I miss La
the-
Tortuga.
I do too. He was
Yeah.
fun. That was a fun
I think
time
he's
when
in the Mexican. I think he's in Mexican League. The last I
yeah,
looked him up.
well,
So
not striking out, not walking, just putting the ball in play.
he's playing ball boy.
Put it in play.
That's right.
When you haven't been watching the Twins, Patrick, I've been into the Olympics. I don't know about you, but I've been into. I mean, we
I
got so
think
many
I
Minnesotans competing, but I'm liking it.
Yeah. I haven't watched much, but I think I was telling somebody this the other day that the level of interest of your wife has a lot to do with how much Olympics you watch
It's true.
because
That's a good point.
the women love the Olympics much more than the male species does, I think, as sports fans go. And but if your wife's into it and gymnastics and the whole deal, and then you end up watching and we watched a little of the finals of the all around for the gymnastics like the
Hmm.
rest of America, but the audience produced by the women's gymnastics is phenomenal, especially when
Yes.
you consider it's in the afternoon now. It's not, they don't like not show it anymore
Right. They show the highlights later, but they show it live as it's
yeah,
happening.
yeah. Because I mean, for years they didn't show it, and they tried to
Right.
keep it, and then people to get mad when you told them what the results
Right.
were. And but it's astounding the numbers they produce for it. I mean, all you got to know is when they had the gymnastics here, the trials here, what 5 weeks ago or something, at Target Center, the women were. If you go see the women's finals, it was costing $2,000, and to go see
Right.
the men's, it was costing $50. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
so it's the appeal, and that it. But I've covered enough Olympics to know it's amazing how the women's gymnastics has changed because it back even in I think it was Sydney in 2000. You had all these 14-year-old girls who
Right.
were weighed like 75 pounds, and their
Yep.
voices hadn't changed. These little tiny girls that were being, basically verbally abused by Bella Carroll and his wife. And then now you got to be 16,
16.
is it
I think
now? You
16 is
got to
the
be
yeah, you gotta be at
16.
least
And
16.
it's changed the sport tremendously, but I think it's improved it too.
Yes.
I mean, Mary Lou was sort of, you got to go back to 84, but Mary Lou
84,
was
yeah.
sort of she was not a little tiny girl, she had some heft to her. And that was kind of she's kind of the precursor to Simone Biles and that. But to see Simone Biles still going at this
Oh yeah.
age is
Yes.
phenomenal considering the
And
history of. I mean, what was Nadia Comaneci? 13 when she first showed
right.
up?
I
13 or
know.
14, something like
It's
that. So it's
Simone's what, like
it's
Simone's 27 now? Is that what she is?
yeah,
20?
she's a mom, right? Didn't she have a baby or something? I thought she did.
Mm,
Maybe not. I don't know. But
married.
I know she's married. Yeah, and the Bears got all this credit for letting the hubby go, and that
Right.
was a watcher. That was great PR. Well, he's going to miss 5 days of training camp. So what? You know. Anyway, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
Training
mean,
camp.
she is phenomenal, and Suni's a great comeback story too. So
Yeah.
it's
And she got some
it is.
medals.
Yeah, I mean, she was got a bunch of medals, so it is tremendous. The viewership is amazing to me. That
Yeah.
And they got a lot of stupid stuff that I don't have any interest in, including the golf. I don't
We don't
I
need to look
mean,
at golf. We don't need to
no,
look at golf.
Scheffler wins and he cries, but what the hell, I didn't even. By that time I turned it on, they were standing on the victory podium, so I don't even know how he went about it winning it because I
Oh,
don't really care.
the
Yeah, now we got so the gymnastics, the women's, the real gymnastics are finally over. What now? We got the people running around with ribbons and stuff like that.
yeah. I don't. The people don't go. People don't go as much. Hey, before talk about that, did you see or read about the men's 100 yesterday? That was the best thing that happened yesterday with Noah Lyles, the American who had been boasting that he was going to get it done. He became the first American in 20 years to win the gold in the 100 meters, and it was just a phenomenal race. And he ends up beating the Jamaican he was competing against by I think 0.005 seconds. So he wins by
Yes,
5/1000ths of a second.
and and you looked at the finish, and it looks like the other guy's over the finish line first. But
Yes,
I was reading it's you got to hit the tape with your torso,
with your
not your
torso.
foot.
Yes.
Yeah, not your foot. So yeah, I mean, well, it's 100. It's 100. It's a fast race. It's going to be close most of the time. If it's not close, somebody is phenomenal. So
The poor
anyway,
announcer
I
called it for. Poor announcer said the Jamaicans got it. He said he miscalled it.
oh, that's not good. That's
No,
not good.
had to
But
wait for the
anyway,
photo finish. Just wait 10 seconds.
when I was a kid, man, we were completely focused on track and field with the Olympics and what were we going to beat the godless Russians or not? And I mean, we knew track and field because there were only about 15 events,
Yep.
and it was I remember I'm old enough to remember the one of the first things I ever saw on TV was the 1956 Olympics from Australia and Bobby Morrow winning the 100 meters
Mm,
from Abilene Christian.
mm.
It was the track was the whole deal back then, and now it's swimming does much better ratings, and they keep
Yeah.
inventing new swimming events, and
Right.
you know, I remember I don't know the football coach or somebody making fun of the idea. Yeah, okay, they give five medals for the same thing, 50 meters, 100 meters, 200, and it's the same thing. Then they go backwards and forwards and, just complaining about
Mm,
the fact that
mm.
they get these endless swimming. And now they got combined relays. I didn't even know they had
Right.
those. Two men, two women. I didn't even know those existed. They must have started the last Olympics, but and yeah, I have not. I must confess, watched much of it. I usually read the wrap ups, and as I was this morning in the snooze paper. So anyway,
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Before we go, you wrote something earlier this week that caught my eye. This young driver from Minnesota,
William
William
Sawalich.
Swallich, that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah,
You wrote
and
about
he,
Faber a little bit too, but I know about Faber. The Swallich
yeah,
kid seems like he's a phenom in the racing world. I just didn't know much about him.
yeah, he's the son of the fellow who runs Starkey Hearing now,
Yep.
and when he was, I think, still 15, maybe they are just turned 16. He and his mother moved to Mooresville, North Carolina. He'd been
Yeah.
in racing. He'd been racing around here. He'd been out at Little Elko, and he got discovered by. I mean, basically they watched him run, and Joe Gibbs signed him in December of 2022, I believe, and he's got to turn 18 before he can run in
Right.
the Xfinity Series. But the Elko race was on TV, and I was watching it Saturday after the other stuff was, or watched about the last half of it, and he had by far the best car out there, and then he's passing some 60-year-old crusty guy who just
Yeah.
bangs him into the wall for because he's mad because this kid's got the better car. So he ends up getting knocked back to eighth, and he has to. But this is a 3/4 mile track, so it's
Okay.
I mean, it's always crowded, and to pass people, you basically have to get side by side and then bump them. And he came back, and at the finish line, three cars, especially him and the other guy, were like all leaning against each other, running sideways. And he won by, I thought it was 1/10, but it was 1/100th of a second. He ends
Wow.
up winning, but he comes back from nowhere. I haven't talked to anybody with his crew yet, but it was a finish. No matter where he goes in auto racing, it was a finish which he will be talking about for the rest of his life. But he's the most clean cut kid you ever met in your life. He's just not what you expect in auto racing. You want a little grease on him, and he's just a nice kid. And last year I talked to him on the phone when I did it. This time I got to meet him, and he's a great kid, and he's got a future. And I think we've only had one regular in Minnesota history as far as a guy running regularly in the main circuit of NASCAR, and which this kid's got a chance to do. And that was a guy named Joe Frazon, Frasson, a Gold Valley guy, but back in the 70s, old time, NASCAR when they had two guys in their pit crew, and but Joe Frazon was, I think, the only regular ever. So this kid's he's going to start in the Xfinity series, and if he has any success, he'll be, he'll probably be with the big boys in 2-3 years. So anyway,
Well, he's running with Gibbs. That's a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, Gibbs is, Gibbs is one of my all-time favorites. The main reason I love Gibbs is, I've dealt with him a few times, and I've always been extremely impressed. But back in Smokey Joe was still coaching. Okay, so it must have been Smokey Joe's last year. Smokey Joe, 83. Is it 83? Yeah, he got fired in 83.
That sounds right,
yeah, when they got edged by Nebraska. But 84-13. But they were going to start the season against Rice. And Rice which is terrible, right? And the Gophers were terrible. And Rice had a coach named Ray Alborn who was famous as a quipster. So I got him on the phone. But I'm talking to him, and he used to be on the coaching staff at Florida State with a guy named Bill Peterson, who also ended up coaching Houston in the NFL later. But Bill Peterson had this phenomenal coaching staff, like 6-7 guys who were major colleges, and Gibbs was on that staff. But he was famous for his malaprops. He had the greatest malaprops in history. Like, we're not going to take any more panky hanky around here and stuff like that. He screwed up. He screwed up everything. And I'm laughing. Albert's telling me a few, and he says, "Well, the guy you got to talk to who knows all of them is Gibbs." And I said, "Well, he's coaching the Redskins." He's, call him at home. He's home. So he gives me his home number. So I said, "What the hell?" I call up Gibbs. His wife answers. And I said, "Okay, Ray Alburn told me that I got to call Joe and get some malaprops from Bill Peterson." Gibbs comes to the phone for 15 minutes. I am howling. He gives me all these famous Bill Peterson malaprops. He's coaching the Redskins then, and there was so I've had a appreciation for him ever since. But man, he's had, both his sons died. JD died in 2019. He had some genetic problem, and then Coy, who was basically running the racing team, died in 2013, I guess, or 2000, no, 22,
22, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they both died within 3 years. So I mean, that's tough for a guy to handle. But yeah, Gibbs loves the kid. So yeah, probably if he keeps progressing, we'll have to make sure we got a paragraph in every Sunday after the races on how this kid did. So
Well, that's interesting because I didn't realize we hadn't produced any real NASCAR regulars. We were so proud of everything else we do in Minnesota. I would have thought we would have done something else in NASCAR in the last 50 years, but
and we don't cover much. We used to do quite a bit of auto racing when they had Gilbert and those guys. And
I've been up to Brainerd a few times for the races up at BIR. We're kind of early in my time here, and we still did that. That was kind of fun.
By the way, they're there. They're there, and the North Star Nationals not this week, but next week, and the John Force team will be there. And of course, John damn near killed himself at age 75, and he had basically a brain injury when he crashed this year. So his team will be there. I mean, he owns 3 or 4 cars, but I don't think he'll be there. But I was talking to Christy, who owns the place. Their big thing right now is they got the National Pyrotechnics up there shooting off fireworks for like 6 days now. They're trying to light the whole forest on fire up there. I guess they're shooting
like a bad idea.
Yeah, they're shooting. Well, they're gonna pack them in for a few days here before the North Star Nationals. I think they started Saturday. I think they started shooting off fireworks up there. So she's still going. Her husband died and he owned it, and she took over, and it hadn't been easy, but they still pack them in for the drag races. So which are
I remember
not this week, but next week. So.
The first time I ever went up there to cover it, they brought me down to the track for one of the real quarter second drag races, the fast one. Had me stand right between the 2 cars before they took off, so I could feel it in my bones. Yes, yeah, right. I don't know if they were proud of it or if it was my initiation or what, but that was something I won't forget.
We were up there once with I got Bob Yates and his wife Kevin. He was married to Kevin Berger then, to come up for a weekend. We were staying in Brainerd, and my wife was with them, and so I got out to the track early, and so they got a pass to get in, so they're driving in, and my wife tells him to turn here. All of a sudden, Yates is lined up to drag race about the third car. He's got a card. He keeps going with the pass, and pretty soon he's, this was kind of the preliminaries, but he was lined up to drag race. He's, what's going on here? So unbelievable.
That's funny.
Funny.
Wow.
Yes, but it's I'm sure that the audience was limited, and we don't do much with it, but it's still, that sport though, Mike, 20 years ago, it was the hot deal. And now I think there's enough anti-car sentiment in the country that they don't have a very young crowd anymore. I don't think so. I think it's aging, kind of like baseball. So.
And a lot of the car audience has drifted towards F1 instead of NASCAR too, I think.
Yeah, which is stupid to me because the same guy wins every week. It's ridiculous. It's the most imbalanced sport there is. Oh, well, did BMW or whoever get on the podium Van Stappen won for like the 80th time in the last 82 races or whatever it is. So it's but I guess the Netflix series did wonders for it.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Patrick, I think we'll end there. Next week we'll be able to talk about the Vikings. They play, I think, Saturday, their first preseason game. We're going to find out if they dare play the rookie quarterback and stuff like that.
It's the first. It's the only home game, right? The
Yes,
first one?
the only home game. Yeah.
Mhm.
So we'll get
And
our
they
look
were
at
supposed to
them.
have they were supposed to let people watch them tonight, but they decided
They
because of the
canceled
weather
because of the
forecast, they
weather.
canceled it. So,
Yep. They postponed it. I'm
and,
going to do something else for the fans. So yeah, I don't know. I don't
well,
know about this team. I don't think they're going to be very good, but I'll wait and see.
I'm very happy that we have three Viking writers and three other columnists who really care about them, and I can just
Right.
stay home and watch them on TV on Sundays. So if I never have to write about them again, it's too soon. So
Yeah.
anyway,
All right, Patrick. Thank you. We'll talk to you next week.
see you later.